सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। रामो राजमणिः सदा विजयते रामं रमेशं भजे रामेणाभिहता निशाचरचमू रामाय तस्मै नमः। रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Hari Om everyone. 19th verse onwards, Bhagavan is describing the nature of superimposition, which is otherwise called as adhyasa. Whenever we do inquiry into the truth, our method of inquiry or the direction of our inquiry cannot be only with utility value. Meaning, if I have to inquire whether nature of fire is hot or cold, you say I should inquire with a very open mind, with no preconceived notions about what is the nature of fire. Whether I like it or not, but I should inquire it in the way that it is. So this is called Satyanveshi, one who wants to know the nature of truth, but is willing to know it in the way that it is. And having known the nature of fire in that way, it is up to me how do I relate with that fire. So knowledge is not polluted. Knowledge is as it is. I can decide how I should interact with that fire. So when it comes to nature of Atma also, it should be known as it is. Sometimes we might not fully appreciate it, or we might not understand what is being said, but not trying to change the Upanishadic teachings. So this particular verse, verse number 23, is one such verse. If we understand it, very good. If we don't understand it, also very good. If you misunderstand it, that is when problems can happen. Ragecha sukha dukkhadi buddhau satyam pravartate. He says all these ragadveshas, whatever shortcomings are there, all of it is in buddhi. What is the logic? Sushuptau nasti tannashe, tad buddhi nashe sushuptau ragechhadi nasti. When buddhi is gone, it has dissolved in deep sleep. None of those qualities are seen in me. Sushuptau nasti tannashe tasmad buddhestu na atmanaha. That is why they are in buddhi alone. They are not there in me, the pure consciousness. In this way, we should meditate. Okay, so knowledge should be as it is. Just like nature of fire is hot, we should not try to know it from the standpoint of anything else. Because I would prefer fire to be cold. Can I do something so that my knowledge becomes of that type? He says you can do it, but that is not called as correct knowledge. So what is the symbolism or what is the implication of this verse in our sadhana, in our understanding? whatever negativities are there, whatever shortcomings are there, that this sadhaka is putting forth effort through sadhana. And this point also we saw, right? Meditation does not remove impurity of the mind. Meditation only tells us, I am the witness of this impure mind. Vedantic meditation, I am sakshi of this mind. And that vritti or that thought which is there could be kamadhyaha. But that doesn't mean I should have those kind of vrittis. In our sadhana, we should put forth all our effort, but never lose heart in ourselves, never look down upon ourselves also. Because as Shuddha Chaitanya, we are ever pure. All we have to do is let go of those impurities. Now, this is also true when we look at others. Just as Ragecha Sukha Dukkhadi Buddhau Satyam Pravartate, they are there only in my buddhi, not in me, the consciousness. In the same way, in others also, all of these things are there in buddhi only. By nature, they are consciousness. They are of the nature of Atman. That Atman I am. There are no two Atmans, right? That same consciousness which is expressing here is the same consciousness which is illumining there. When this kind of understanding we keep dwelling upon more and more, when we use this knowledge to face some situation in life, to come out of certain situations in life, he says, then we will start seeing a result of this knowledge in our life. Right? Whatever Upanishads say, that knower of this truth rejoices, samodate, modaniyam hi labdhva. You know, the one who knows this truth in this way rejoices. He says it is not mere hearing of this statement. After hearing this statement, I should put forth effort to think about it, do mananam, and come up to own up my knowledge, which is otherwise called as nididhyasanam. So these are all very precise pointers, and it will help us stay on the right path. Otherwise, we will constantly struggle mixing up mind with Atman, thinking that I am not consciousness right now, I am not Brahma right now. Someday I will experience consciousness. Someday I will be one with consciousness. He says, you're already one. If mind is bothering, we will take care of it. There are methods for it. Right? But don't let go of this knowledge because of some erroneous notion. Okay, so that was the previous 23rd verse. Now somebody comes and says, okay, you said that this raga, dvesha, sukha, dukkha, everything is agantuka. Agantuka means what? It comes at some point and it goes away. It is not the nature of Atman. Does this mean that those three indicators that you have, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, they are also agantuka? Means does it come at some point and it goes away at some point in consciousness? He said, does Atma have Satchidananda also as its attribute? Okay, I hope you got the question. Just as Ragecha, Raga, Ichha, everything is an attribute, it comes and goes. It is not there in Sushupti. Does Satchidananda also come and go? Means do I exist sometime and do I not exist sometime? Does my power of illumining go away at some point? Do I become of Dukkha Swarupa at some point? You say Atma is Ananda Swarupa, but I don't feel that way. You know, I feel like I get unhappy sometimes. You say all of these erroneous notions are because I have owned up or identified with some erroneous conditioning. And when that conditioning is not available, I think Atma is not available. This point we had seen in our Bhagavad Gita class also, Nasato vidyate bhavaha, in that verse, that when conditioning is not available and this existence is not expressed there, we start feeling the existence itself has gone away somewhere. In deep sleep, there is no subtle body which is expressing sentiency. You say because that conditioning has gone away, Atma also has lost its ability to illumine. Mind has become dukhi. We start feeling, I have become dukhi. He says Satchidananda is not an attribute which comes and goes. Satchidananda is our Swarupa. Satchidananda itself is called as Atman. It is not that there is something called as Atman and something which is Sat, which is on top of it, Chit, which is on top of it, and Ananda is on top of it. So to explain that, this verse has come now. प्रकाशोर्कस्य तो यस्य शैत्यमग्नेर्यथोष्णता स्वभावः सच्चिदानन्द नित्यनिर्मलतात्मनः प्रकाशोर्कस्य तो यस्य शैत्यमग्नेर्यथोष्णता स्वभावः सच्चिदानन्द नित्यनिर्मलतात्मनः. Examples are given in the first line. Arkasya prakashah swabhavah. That is a key word. Swabhava means what? That without which this thing will cease to exist. Swabhava doesn't mean the colloquial meaning of swabhava that we have, So who is this person who is angry right now? Oh, don't worry about him. That is his swabhava. Always he gets angry. That is his swabhava. Somebody is, always frowning or always smiling. You say, why is this person like this? Oh, that is his swabhava. But not in that context to use the word over here. Swabhava means that without which a thing ceases to exist. It's natural quality, you can call. Okay, or natural, instead of saying quality, because if you say quality, then it can come and go. Inherent nature, that is more precise. Arkasya prakashah, of sun, light, the illumination that is there in the sun, that is its swabhava. Toyasya shaityam, of water, coolness is its swabhava. Water is cool by itself. Agnehe ushnata, of fire, ushnata, heat is its swabhava. Means wherever you go, whether it is in US, Europe, India, all these things will have the same nature. Means even if you go to India, sun will shine, fire will be hot, water will be cool. So these are indicators of the word swabhava. Swabhava means what? That without which a thing will cease to exist. That which is not conditioned by time and space. Means no matter at what time we have seen fire, it is always hot. Morning, afternoon, evening, any place you see fire, it is always hot. So whatever doesn't change with time and space, desha kala, that becomes its swabhava. Some more pointers about swabhava. whatever is swabhava of something never becomes a burden to that thing. Fire doesn't feel tired of burning. Sun doesn't feel tired of illumining. Water doesn't feel tired of being cool. Because that is its swabhava. Right? So this is the third point about swabhava. Whatever is swabhava of something, that is never a burden to that thing. And if you disturb that thing from its swabhava, it will do everything to get back to its original nature. Means that water which is there, even if you try to heat it up, so that heat is not its swabhava. So it has gotten heated up, but if you just leave it at that place, it will go back to its original swabhava, which is coolness. Okay, so this is the fourth point. That even if you change the swabhava of something or try to change it, it will not stay for too long. It will always go back to its original nature. Okay, all these things are pointers about swabhava. Now look at the next point. Just as these things are swabhava of sun, water, and fire, Satchidananda Nitya Nirmalata Atmanaha. Nitya Nirmalata Atmanaha Swabhavaha. What is the swabhava of Atman? It says swabhava of Atman is, it is Sat Swarupa, it is Chit Swarupa, and it is Ananda Swarupa, and it is Nitya Nirmala. Nitya can go with Satchidananda also. It is Nitya Satchidananda Swarupa. The word Sat itself means that which does not get negated. Right? So that is my nature as consciousness. I am aware of the nature of existence, consciousness, and bliss. I am always pure. Nitya Nirmala, Nitya Nirmalata Atmanaha Swabhavaha. You know, this point becomes more important. These are taken up in other texts, okay, for discussion. He says, what did we conclude in our analysis of Swabhava? Many things we saw, right? But some points we will see now for Atman, how that understanding of the word Swabhava plays a role in our understanding of ourselves. So he says, this Swabhava is that which cannot change. Right? Swabhava is something which is eternal, it will not change. So now nature of Atman, if you want to inquire into Swabhava, what is the Swabhava of Atma? This is first think about what is the Swabhava of anything which is created. Right? Krutaka Vastu, whatever is there, the Swabhava of anything which is created is that it will undergo all 6 modifications, the final one being Vinasha. Right? So any Krutaka Vastu, anything which is created, will finally undergo destruction. So you say, can Atman be like that? Atman cannot be like that because Shruti Virodha will happen first. Na jayate mriyate va vipaschit, Katopanishad. Bhagavad Gita also we saw that verse. Atman is that which is not born, it is not created, nor it will destroy. So that thing also will not apply there. And second is, I'll be seeking for some moksha for some object which is going to get destroyed at some time. So then what is the difference between running after some worldly object and then seeking Atman? Worldly object also is going to get destroyed at some point, and Atma is also going to get destroyed at some point. If we say that Atman is created. So here Gaudapadacharya ji, he says, moksha can be only of that thing which is already my swabhava. If I have to attain at some point, unlike some other schools of thoughts who say that right now you are not liberated, I will do something and then I will get moksha. He says, prakruter anyatha bhavah na katanchit bhavishyati. If swabhava of something is to get destroyed, then you cannot undo it. So if you say, I'm going to get moksha at some point, so then moksha will be krutaka moksha. Moksha will be something which I have created. He said that thing which is created will go away also. This is Advaita Vedanta way of inquiry. Huh? He says you are already liberated. You are already of the nature of consciousness. Then why do I feel that I am bound? You see, that is what we call as avidya. That we should remove through Vedanta Shravanam. Prama should come and it should displace this misunderstanding that I have, that I am this finite individual. Right? That is where this word swabhava will become very important. There is an elaborate, 10 karikas almost, which are written on this word, swabhava. And what is the premise? He says, if my swabhava is not already Satchidananda Swarupa, if I have to become Satchidananda at some point, he says that kind of moksha I don't want. Because if I have become it, if I have created that state for myself, it will go away. He says, show me one thing in this creation which is created and it doesn't get destroyed. Okay, so that is the precision of this word, swabhavaha. Means I have to just hear this very clearly with a calm mind, sit down and reflect upon this whenever I get a chance. Okay. That my swabhava is Satchidananda. I don't have to do anything to become Satchidananda. And this topic which is going on is the topic of adhyasa, right? So what it means here is, in my swarupa, as this pure consciousness, I am ever free from all adhyasa. Because Satchidananda is my swabhava. Anything that is conditioned form of this consciousness, this is that can only be an appearance. In this consciousness, there is no other. So whatever is appearing, that I should have clear knowledge about. Swabhava Satchidanandaha Nitya Nirmala Tatmanaha. So those 4 pointers which we saw, we should apply to Atma also. Huh? That if my, what was the first point that we had seen? That whatever is my swabhava is never a burden to me. So existence is never a burden to me. I'm never tired of existing. You say, no, I get tired. That is because I have mixed up some other thing in Atma. Right? When mind is not getting what it wants, that is when it gets tired. You see, don't mix up that. As Satchidananda, I will never get tired of existing, of being of the nature of knowledge, and being infinite, Ananda. Those 3 things will never become a burden to me. I'm never tired of being happiness. And if something tries to change my swabhava, right? This you can reflect on your own. I will just take one point. Let us say Ananda is there. infinitude is there. And because of ignorance, I have taken myself to be a finite individual. So just like that water which is boiling, it will go back to its swabhava, or it will try to go back to its swabhava, which is coolness. We say we also keep trying to go towards infinitude. Because infinitude is our swabhava, I have taken myself to be some finite jiva. And I cannot let go of this desire to be infinite. Only mistake I make is holding on to conditionings, I try to become infinite. Like yesterday we were seeing Ravana's example. He wanted to become immortal, but holding on to this body. And what does Vedanta want to say? That you are already immortal. Let go of this body identification, do your sadhana to reduce this body identification, and through knowledge come to own up your true nature. So our quest also is always towards infinitude. Right? Anything finite, anything constrained, we never like it. You say at this conditioning level, everything is finite only. No matter how healthy body we have, he says it is not eternal. Right? So don't strive too much to seek eternality holding on to conditionings. You say, no, what Vedanta is trying to say, that you are already infinite. Okay, so this word swabhava, we should dwell on more and more. So now somebody says, now Bhagwan is switching the topic. After Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji, 19th verse to 24th verse spoke about adhyasa, type nature of superimposition. Now he is bringing up another very, very important topic of ahankara. What is this ahankara? And because you have studied Drigdrishya Viveka, hopefully this topic will become easier and we can connect back with Drigdrishya Viveka. So somebody says, this whole thing which is going on, right? Tamasha, you can say, baffles me. You say, why is that? Because you keep saying that Atma is Satchidananda, it is avikari, it does not undergo any modification, and it is not doer of any action, not recipient of any result. On the other hand, you also say that body is inert, it is panchikruta panchamahabhuta. You also said mind is inert. I attended Tattva Bodha class also. Mind is made up of subtle 5 elements. Apanchikruta panchamahabhuta it is made up of. So then who is this person who is speaking, who is listening right now, who is busy from morning till evening? So many things are going on. What is it that enlivens all of these things? And how is this everything happening? Neither Atma can do that, nor can inert sense organs and body do it, or even mind for that matter. So who is this entity who is running this show? Okay. So this is a very, very important verse, 25th, 26th, also 27th. 3 verses you can mark. Atmanas satchidam shascha, Atmanas satchidam shascha, Buddhir vrittiritidvayam, Buddhir vrittiritidvayam, Sanyojya cha vivekena, Sanyojya cha vivekena, Janamiti pravartate, Janamiti pravartate, Atmanas satchidam shascha, Buddhir vrittiritidvayam, Sanyojya cha vivekena, Janamiti pravartate. He says, this entire thing is happening Gurdev used to put it in a very humorous statement. He says this entire thing is happening because of an unholy wedlock between matter and spirit. That is how he used to say, between this consciousness and matter, there is an erroneous superimposition which is happening. It has not actually happened, but it appears in such a way, if we don't inquire, then this whole thing will not be able to figure out what is happening where. Atmanah Satchidamshascha. It says of this consciousness, two aspects which are there. Sat aspect, existence aspect, and Chit aspect, the consciousness aspect. That portion gets superimposed. That portion from Atman is taken. Buddhehe vrittihi. And the thought which is there in this buddhi, antakarana, that portion is taken. In what way? That this vritti first borrows existence from Atma. Sat aspect is borrowed first. And second, it borrows Chit aspect. It gets ability to illumine. When these two things come together, Sat Chit aspect of Atma and vritti of this buddhi, sanyojya, coming together, how? Avivekena. They have not actually come together. Just like that rope which is there, the real rope and unreal snake. They are appearing together, but they have not actually come together. He says, in the same way, this buddhi vritti, thought which is there, sanyojya cha avivekena janami iti pravartate. This ahankara which is there, it comes to own up that I am seeing this world, I am knowing things and everything. Okay, so this is the literal meaning of this verse. And wherever there is aviveka, there will be shoka. Okay. Shoka means what? Sorrow. If I think I am bhokta, janami means I am bhokta. In Gurudev's BMI chart, the PFT, perceiver, feeler, thinker. He says that is the root of all adhyasa. Now we are entering into the core teaching of Advaita Vedanta. All other adhyasa examples that we saw, everything is to come to this point and see what is happening here. So now how does this point relate to what we had seen in Drugdrishya Viveka? Remember in Drugdrishya, 6th verse, what was it? Chichaya veshato buddhau bhanam dhistudvidha sthita. This chichaya has entered buddhi, antakarana, it has entered. And this bhanam, this reflected consciousness, is situated in two ways. Bhanam dhistudvidha sthita. Eka aham krutihi anya syat antahkarana rupini. One is called as ahankara, eka aham krutihi. Another is called as vritti, antakarana vritti. And in both these aspects, there is reflected consciousness. Don't get too confused with terminologies. More important is we should see what is happening here. Technical concepts are not for us to get carried away with words. Okay. So keep it very simple. In this buddhi, there are two parts. One is called as ahankara, another is called as thought or mind, you call. Okay, so there is mind and there is ahankara. And this is how I am able to know everything. right? So whenever there is an object of the world outside, so in that vritti portion, a thought has to be formed of that particular object. If it is a pot, then ghatakara vritti is formed. If it is a flower, then pushpakara vritti is formed. So different thoughts keep happening there. So knowledge always takes place in the form of a thought. But right where there is this vritti, there is another entity which is owning up this knowledge now. And it always goes together, right? I say, I know that pot. I know this flower. So that entity which is owning up the knowledge is called as ahankara. Okay, this much is clear, that thought, and you listen to the whole portion. You might have heard many things in the past. It's always good to listen with an open mind. If there are questions, we can discuss. So vrittis which are there, they are getting formed of the world outside. So knowledge is through thoughts. The one who is owning up that knowledge is this ahankara, who is called as knower. What is that vritti called? Vritti is called as jnanam. Knowledge is called as jnanam. The one who is owning up that knowledge is called as jnata. But what happens is, thoughts keep changing. Like in this class also, I'm saying something, one sentence I'm saying. Hopefully it is creating some thought. And hopefully it is also creating some knowledge. Now that thought, one after the other, they have changed. But the knower who is there, that knower is relatively unchanging. Relatively, Meaning what? If that first statement is uttered, second is uttered, and like this you sit through the entire class. And if you ask, did you understand? You say, yes, I understood. So thoughts came and went. So which thought did you understand? He says all of it. Or maybe the first 15 minutes, not the later half, whatever. So that ahankara is relatively same. If that ahankara also went away, then who will be the one who is remembering? Right? If ahankara also keeps going away with thought, and every time you are a new person, he says you will not understand anything. Every sentence will be a new revelation. So this ahankara has both aspects. It is relatively unchanging, and it is undergoing modification also. If you say it is absolutely unchanging, then it will become same as consciousness. It will become same as sakshi. So ahankara is not that way. No, ahankara is undergoing modifications, but it is relatively unchanging. And this ahankara has bhranti-janya tadatmya with atma or sakshi. This point we saw in Drigdrashya Viveka, right? There are three sambandha that ahankara has. One is with reflected consciousness, which is sahaja tadatmya. Nothing we have to do about it. Just like when you keep water outside, sun is there, it will get reflected. So this ahankara is also like that. Whenever it is there, consciousness will get reflected. So that is first sambandha. This ahankara also is enlivening this body now. Right? If you had that question, how is this body getting enlivened? He says ahankara and body have karmaja sambandha. As long as prarabdha karmas are there, it will continue to express in this body. But ahankara and sakshi as bhranti-janya tadatmya. Bhranti-janya means erroneous superimposition. Just like that snake and rope has erroneous superimposition, erroneous sambandha. Ahankara and Sakshi has erroneous sambandha. Okay, I think this much technical portion is good for now. We should just dwell on this more, right? What is this? How is this entire thing functioning over here? Our Swamiji used to give an example, which is, which helps make things very precise. He used to say, think about it as a lake. And on the top of the lake, you have ripples. And bottom of the lake is calm. Okay, it is not absolutely calm, but it is calmer than the top. And the sun which is there, it gets reflected in both those places. It gets reflected in the lake also. Bottom of the lake also you will have that, whole thing will be lit up. And the ripples which are there on the top, there also the sun gets reflected. He says our thoughts are like those ripples, okay, which are there on the top. Vritti, that other part of Antakarana, what we saw, right? That is called as the vrittis or the ripples which are there in that lake. And the relatively calm portion, which is at the bottom, that is this ahankara. Okay, so ahankara, there also consciousness is reflected, and in thoughts, there also consciousness is reflected. If you want, you can draw, a nice picture. I had done it, when we were studying, and again, we can go back to it because later on, certain terms will be introduced. I'm not introducing everything right away. It might get little overwhelming, right? So gradually we will build on it. Okay, so now we can think about what is happening here. Okay, this whole purpose of technical analysis is to do Atma Vichara. This is Vedanta's fundamental thing is to not only answer questions, Vedanta's fundamental inquiry is to question the questioner. We might have so many questions about several things, but Vedanta says, question that individual who is asking these questions now. That individual is this Janami, the one who is perceiver, feeler, thinker. He says this ahankara is what we have to question. This ahankara that is running the show from morning till evening, that is doing so many things in the world outside. He says this ahankara we have to question. Validity of this I notion. And when we inquire, this ahankara cannot stand inquiry. When you go and use Upanishad and then inquire into how is this I notion appearing? Where is it rising? Where is it sustained? Where does it dissolve back into? We say there it cannot stand inquiry. And this, if we can make as our way of thinking, right? It's a great support in our Atma Vichara, great support in Nididhyasanam. And this was the favorite method of Raman Maharshi Ji. Favorite means he had only one method. There were no many methods. But he was very thorough in his teaching also. And he used to say, don't spend your time inquiring about too many other things. And if you do that inquiry, all of it should come back to this. This aham is where you should inquire. Make this ahankara as a second person and then look at it. Look at different things, different hats that it is wearing throughout the day. and see what all things it is doing. And whenever you are able to see it, that means you are different from it. So when you inquire in that way, he says you will be able to shift your attention back to that Chaitanya. Now again, we should take support of Upanishads here. Otherwise, we'll get thoroughly confused. Who is this witness? Is this witness some other ahankara? He says no. Whatever things are happening, everything is happening in this ahankara. And all the specifics which are there, right? Specifics of knowledge, Vishesha Jnanam it is called. All of it is in this ahankara. And because there is Bhrantijanya Tadatmya, I start feeling this consciousness is having this Vishesha Jnanam. He says, no, consciousness is of the nature of Jnanam. Sometimes it is called as Samanya Jnanam, but even that word sometimes can be misleading. Right? General knowledge or knowledge in general. He says, no, Chaitanya is of the nature of knowledge. You remove this knowership from this consciousness, what remains that you are. Don't define this knowledge now in another term. If you say Samanya, then again this mind will, think about some other definition of Samanya. So more we will dwell on next time. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, we'll take some questions from last time. You said that Sakshi is one of the qualities superimposed on consciousness. I don't know if I said that. Now, when we see that our mind is disturbed or peaceful, who is the seer? Because consciousness does not have any distinction of what is peace or agitation or any kind of preference. This is precisely what we discussed just now, that consciousness doesn't have any specific knowledge. And this is how the nature of adhyasa is. You will never be able to experience Sakshi devoid of these conditionings. Meaning what? We will never be able to experience Sakshi as another object. So even if we say, who is the seer? He says Sakshi alone is a seer, but not in the way that Ahankara is a seer. Right? Ahankara, when it witnesses the world outside, when it sees the world outside, it is doing it through thoughts. It is undergoing modification and it gets tired. But Sakshi is of the nature of knowledge. So a more effective way is knowing what I should let go of. Okay, letting go of this knowership. Letting go means what? Knowing that this finitude is an appearance. It is not another superimposition or attribute as such. It is an erroneous title, you can say. That Sakshitva which is there, it is only from the standpoint of Sakshya, the object which it is witnessing. The example we had seen was fire burning that wood. Saying that fire burns is only from the standpoint of wood. Putting it as an action is only from the standpoint of that conditioning. So in that way we said that Sakshi is a title which is given because of Sakshya. Okay, by its nature, it is what it is. Right? It is not having any titles. Now, why that title is given? So that we can have some path to inquire. It should not become some another esoteric idea, some another remote entity, which I've heard of, but I don't know how to reach there. So that part also we should think about. Huh? Our acharyas, if they have mentioned it in that way, it is meant for us to think in the right direction, to inquire in the right direction. Right? And all specific knowledge belongs to ahankara. It doesn't belong to atma. So there was another question which hopefully is answered from 25th, 26th verse. It won't be answered every time. It won't be answered directly also. We just have to reflect on it more and more. Okay, so the question was, if we take example of sun, it is different and does not even know what is happening on the earth and other planets. Similarly, if consciousness is unaware of the body-mind complex and as the three shariras are jada, then what is making our body and mind alive and kicking? This just intrigues me. Who is the karta? He says, karta is this ahankara mahoday. And if you want to precisely know who is karta, we should put our name there. Okay. Ahankara is not some other person. Ahankara is this fellow. You know, one of our Swamiji, his way of giving lecture is like that. You know, his favorite texts are like Saddarshanam, Upadesha Sara. And whenever he will give his pravachan, he will talk to some fictitious person and call about like this fellow. Say, hey, like this he will say, as though he is speaking to some other person. What he's doing is he's making this ahankara as different from him, and he will be talking to that person. It's very scary in the first, when you are not knowing what he is doing and you are sitting in the audience, he's looking right next to you and he's saying, this fellow, this fellow, like this. So this ahankara is the karta, and Vedantic way of inquiry is making it as other than you and seeing it. See, in this inquiry, Vyavahara should not enter. Huh? If Vyavahara enters, then we'll erroneously apply this knowledge. Vyavahara is always between ahankara and the world. And inquiry of truth is between Atma and ahankara. Okay, I will repeat what I said. Vyavahara is always between ahankara and the world. And there I need sattvic ahankara. There I should not apply direct, this Brahma Vidya in that sense. Means everything is Brahman, doesn't mean that ahankara and world interaction can go on in that way. He says there dharma will be the guiding force. But when we inquire into the truth, it is only between Atma and ahankara. Okay, so world, whatever has to go on, it will keep going on. But we cannot blame Atma for it. Right? It is all the mess that can come in place is because of this ahankara. Gurudev is to give an example that the gas in the car is not responsible for where your car is going. Person driving the car, that person, if he is sadashvaha, good horses are there, good charioteer is there, then your car will go in good direction. If it's not, that Sarathi is not yukta, Katopanishad, if that Sarathi is not yukta, then that car will go here and there. So for Vyavahara, it is all about ahankara, but this is inquiry into the truth between Atma and ahankara. Can you give one more example of adhyasa which is not visible? I wonder why you want to know one more example of adhyasa which is not visible. I think this is from the point we had discussed about the blueness in the sky, right? Where Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji said, it is not necessary that adhyasa has to take place in something which is pratyaksha. It can also take place in apratyaksha vastu, which is this consciousness. Just like in space, this adhyasa is happening, right? I think from there this question has come now. But one thing we should know is, to break any vyapti, only one example is sufficient. Okay. If you can find one example to break that correlation, on the basis of one example only, your point is proved. It is not about quantity of examples that you give to break that vyapti. But if you still want an example, then also there is one. What is example of adhyasa which is not perceived through sense organs? This is that adhyasa which happens at thought level. Adhyasa means what? Taking one thing for another. So in Smriti, whatever one thing is taken for another, that is also an example of this. Like for example, I say, what is the shloka in Bhagavad Gita that talks about existence and non-existence? And then you start, Ashochanan Vashochastum Prajnavadansha Bhasase. You say, no, not that one. It is Na sato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate satah. So your understanding of existence, non-existence was in another shloka. In that thought of that shloka, that got superimposed here. So whatever adhyasa is taking place in Smriti level, that is another example of this. Okay. You say that sukha and dukkha in the mind are in the mind and they go away with purity of mind. What if mind is just a window and closing the window does not make the event outside the window go away? So when we say going away, it is not only closing the window. Okay, there are two aspects here. It is like saying, when I put that light on this illusory snake, where does that snake go? Or how does it go away? It goes away because I've understood nature of substratum. This is in that way, these things will go away. Raga, Dvesha, everything which is there in mind will go away in the sense that I will know that this is mithya. I will know that this is an appearance in consciousness. In that way, it will go away. But the thing is, perception of this thing will continue, right? That is the difference we have been seeing from all these shlokas. Perception of these things are going to continue, and our shastras don't endorse this fact that we should just close windows over our negativities. So that we should try to clean. Just closing the window at mind level is not going to clean it and make it go away, because I have to perceive it even after knowledge. And if it is too high, it will not even allow knowledge to take place. Right? So that is why we should understand it from both perspectives. When we say Sushuptau nasti tannashe tasmad buddhestu natmanah, that is to know mithyatva of these things. Just like that snake is mithya in that rope, in the same way these things are an appearance in me. Okay, and other side is making sure we put forth effort to cleanse it. This point came yesterday in the Ramayana class also. Those of you who were not there in that class, Goswamiji gave an example. He said, even if you are taking water from Gangaji and making some intoxicant out of it, some alcohol or something you make, because it is made from Gangaji, nobody will say that it is Ganga water only, right? So pure, please give me also. He says, no Santa Mahatma will endorse it. But that same thing, if you throw it back in Gangaji, he says that water will again become pure. Meaning what? At mind level, put forth lot of effort to purify the mind. And through knowledge, know that this mind is an appearance in consciousness. That mind, which is pure, will be able to hold on to this knowledge more. Right? It will not suddenly get shaken. But most importantly, it should do dukkha nivritti, right? That is the whole purpose of studying this. Whenever mind becomes insistent on something, this knowledge should come and save me. What am I so insistent about? Buddhe phalam anagraha, that result of knowledge is anagraha, right? That we will understand only when we understand this point. That because this buddhi itself is mithya, buddhi itself is an appearance. You say, what am I holding on so tightly to something outside from this world? Okay. Can you please repeat the definition of mana, abhimana, apamana, and sammana? Okay, quickly I will repeat. Mana means something to measure. Pramana we have seen, right? Prakarshena miyateti pramana. To measure something, ma dhatu, it is called as mana. Abhimana is, I have measured too much about myself. Right? My estimation about myself is too much. Now this is estimation about whom? Ahankara or Atma. This estimation is all of Ahankara only. Atma's estimation only Upanishads can do. But letting go of that, I have created some other mana of myself. Whatever that is, we all have different hats that we wear. So we should see where we have created that abhimana. And when somebody comes and measures me less than that benchmark that I have for myself, if I have certain expectation of, attention, respect, or something from the world outside, and the person who is there in front of me gives less than that, that is called as apamana. And I had some expectation, somebody gave much more, that becomes sanmana. Right? Sanmana means what? Honoring or, felicitating somebody. Vedanta says you are none of that, become amana. Amana means owning my nature as consciousness, which is beyond any measurement. Why are you fitting in that small little thing and then trying to measure yourself through these conditionings? Because they are there at some point and they will go away at some point. Right? Anything that we take, even it is our ability to remember, ability to think, so there will be a time when this ability is going to fade off. It doesn't mean that we should not have it, but know that we should relate to it in the right perspective. Okay. All right. There are some more questions, and I see that there's some more here. Okay, we'll see this in the next session. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.